He walked through his plane, waist deep in water, to check that everyone was out. He hasn't spoken yet. His family has.
We'd just like to say that we are very grateful that everyone is off the airplane safely. And that was really what my husband asked to convey to everyone. And of course, we are very proud of Dad.
Investigators are still trying to work out exactly what happened. This evening they said that both of the plane's engines are missing. It's believed they came off on impact. There are still many questions, and yet for now, all that most people here are talking about is the skilled pilot who did his job and calmly saved 155 lives.
And Matthew joins us now live from the site along the Hudson River where the plane ended up after yesterday's harrowing landing. Matthew, it must be pretty cold out there. So we've got this plane, we've got this story of miracle and of superheroes rescuing the passengers, but there's a certain protocol now, isn't there? They have to actually get this plane out of the water. What are they going to do about that?
They do, and they think they might have some difficulty trying to do it. If I can just ask the cameraman to try and zoom in to prove that there is a plane there in the darkness behind us, you'll be able to pick out, hopefully, the white lights glinting off part of its wingtip there. At that plane site at the moment there are investigators, and what you can't see is large heavy lifting equipment, cranes that have been brought in here, that they are going to try and use, we are told, sometime on Saturday, possibly as early as 10 a.m. Eastern time here on the east coast of the United States, to try and lift that plane out of the water. But as I mentioned in the report, it's going to be very difficult because they want to try and keep the plane intact as one unit when they lift it out, not to do further damage to it, so that they get the best picture possible of exactly what happened. And also, as I mentioned, Matt, in the package, in the report there, the investigators have said in the last few hours that they now know that the two engines are no longer on the wreckage of the plane here. They have had divers through the day using sonar equipment searching for those two engines. They believe they're up in the Hudson River somewhere to the north of us.
And Matthew, I guess we're all fascinated by this story because this kind of happy outcome is so rare under these circumstances. And the number of stories that you've outlined in your report are really quite baffling. The one I particularly like is the man in the hospital bed who was given the shirt literally off the pilot's back.
I know, it's astonishing, isn't it? I mean, what's clear here is that whatever comes out of any of the investigation, whatever the reasons are behind this, whatever the fault of any parties involved is, it is clear that the crew did an exceptional job here. I mean, how many times have we all been on aeroplanes and ignored that safety announcement at the beginning? They say, in the event of an emergency landing on water. I know I've raised my eyes at that and said, oh yeah, if we ever landed on water, there wouldn't be much of us left. Well, there was clearly no loss of life in this. Remarkable, not just the pilot, remember, but also his co-pilot, who also has a great deal of experience, and then those other crew members who helped to get people out. The stories from inside and outside the plane are astonishing. People helping one another. That we heard from several people who said they allowed women and children to get out first, and it must have been deeply frightening there, Matt. It is freezing here this evening. It was very, very cold yesterday as well. It must have been very frightening as that plane went down, but everybody got out alive.
Matthew Price, thanks very much indeed. Try and keep warm. So just how hard was it for the pilot to land under such conditions? For answers, we turn now to John Wiley, an aviation expert and former pilot who joins us from Atlanta. Thanks very much for coming on the program, Mr. Wiley. You knew Sully, the pilot, apparently. Was he the perfect guy to conduct this kind of extraordinary landing under those conditions?
Sully and I have worked on a couple of projects. We're not close friends, we're acquaintances, but I always found Sully to be a very articulate, intelligent fellow, ready to laugh, and from what I understand from his instructors, and he was an instructor or pilot, he may still be, he's what we would refer to as a good stick. He's a good aviator.
So talk us through what a pilot, what you would have done, what he did under those extraordinary circumstances as you take off from LaGuardia and then realize that something's gone dreadfully wrong.
Sully's been with the company for 27, 29 years, I think it is. He's got over 19,000 flying hours. So this started off as another day at the office. The flight track that I saw showed him at about 3,200 feet, a little over 200 knots. So the airplane at that point in time would have been cleaned up, gear retracted, flaps retracted, thrust reduced to climb power, and it's going to be another day in the office. And all of a sudden, you start losing both engines. There has to be a moment there when Sully and his first officer looked at each other like, this is not really happening. and then focusing on trying to get a very, very abnormal situation back as close to normal as possible. His resources are diminishing rapidly. He's got to make some very quick choices. He's probably too high and has too much energy to make it back into LaGuardia. Air traffic control says that he has options of going to that runway. He says unable. There's a second airport at proximity, Teterboro, used by general aviation and business jets. Both airports are surrounded by densely populated areas. I would imagine it became apparent to Sully that his only option was the Hudson River. But you don't practice dual-engine failures. You don't practice gliding in and an unplanned ditching. If you look at most ditching procedures, they are set up for a period of time where your task loading, the things that you have to do, can be spread out over a long period of time. This obviously did not happen.
And tell us, how difficult is it to land a plane on water?
I've never done it, so I really can't answer, but the old maxim that I've always heard was, if you're going to crash, make it as much like a normal landing as possible. You don't want to do anything extraordinary. You don't try to anything new. You're trying to get the new picture that you've got with all of these problems to look as much like an old picture, one that you're comfortable with. So as Sully's coming down to the water, he's thinking about just, this is another landing. I know that's hard to contemplate, but you've got to go with that.
John Wiley, thank you very much for that really clear and extraordinary stuff. Thanks a lot. In the first minutes after yesterday's crash landing, as television networks, including the BBC, were desperately attempting to find and to broadcast a picture, any picture, this remarkable close-up photograph was already bouncing all over the planet, on the internet, while traditional news organizations scrambled photographers and satellite trucks to the scene. A social networking site called Twitter was offering a textbook example of the changing ways in which iconic images are recorded and then distributed. The BBC's David Sillerton has that report.
It is an extraordinary photo, but what is even more extraordinary is how quickly people around the world got to see it and the words that accompanied it. And the photo was taken by a member of the public. Johannes Krums happened to be on a passing ferry. He simply posted it from his phone to a social network site on the web.
Everyone around the world has seen this picture. Everyone was instantly able to get it once they heard about the crash, so it spread like wildfire after that, we might have heard.
A quick search shows the photo's global journey. China, Iran, Japan, Norway, Germany. At a time when the news networks were still searching for the plane.
Though we haven't acquired yet a picture from the WABC helicopter.
The Krums photo was hitting inboxes around the world.
I first found out about this crash because I was sitting there looking at my phone last night on Twitter, and that was the first I'd heard of it.
And within minutes, the web was abuzz. Citizen journalism is changing the face of old and new media.
The fact that it's not just geeks like me, but actually huge amounts of general members of the public who are in these social networks and exposed to this information, I think that's been a huge shift.
Finally, what was Johannes' New Year's resolution? Increase his profile on Twitter. I think he can cross that one off. David Sillerton, BBC News.
Air accident investigators in New York have released dramatic first-hand accounts of what happened on board a U.S. Airways plane minutes before it ditched into the Hudson River. The aeroplane was recovered from the river and placed onto a barge following a successful operation overnight.
It was a slow operation, deliberately slow. As the plane was hoisted out by giant cranes, tons of water drained away from the fuselage. Contrary to earlier reports, one engine is still attached to the aircraft. It's believed the other has been detected by sonar in the Hudson River. Investigators should now be able to get to the flight recorders located in the rear of the plane. They've also heard the personal accounts of the flight crew. Shortly after takeoff, Captain Sullenberger said he looked up to see his windscreen filled with big, dark brown birds. As both engines failed, he said, "My aircraft," and took over control of the plane from his first officer. He told investigators he was too low and too slow to get to any airport. Ditching was the only way to avoid what he called a catastrophic crash over a densely populated area.
When asked which runway the pilot would like to land on, the pilot responded, "We're gonna be in the Hudson." And that is the last communique from the plane.
Captain Sullenberger said he tried to put down near a boat. The plan worked. The first ferry was alongside the plane within 3 minutes. Andy Moore, BBC News.